My name is Lena Carter. I'm 29 years old. And I'll never forget the day my mother told me to leave her wedding. It still feels unreal, like a nightmare I woke up from, only to realize I was still standing in it. The chandeliers were glowing like 1,000 eyes, and everyone looked perfect, tall, slim, elegant. Every dress fit like it was sewn onto a mannequin. And then there was me, standing in the doorway in my navy blue gown, clutching a small clutch that suddenly felt like a shield. At first, no one said anything. They just looked, that slow, quiet judgment that cuts deeper than words ever could. My stomach twisted as I walked inside. I could feel my heels sinking slightly into the polished floor, my pulse loud in my ears. If you're feeling this story already, please take a second to subscribe to Principled Stories and tap like, YouTube, as algorithm might not show us to each other again, and I share stories like this every week that deserve to be heard. I spotted my mother across the room, radiant in white, younger looking than she had in years. The man beside her, her new husband, looked smug. And far too young. The crowd buzzed with polite laughter and clinking glasses. I forced a smile and stepped forward, my hands trembling slightly. "Mom?" I whispered when I finally reached her. She turned, her expression tightening just a little. "Lena, I didn't think you were coming." Her voice was cold. Controlled? "I told you I would," I said, trying to sound steady. "You're still my mother." But her eyes darted toward the guests, then back to me, as if my presence were some kind of embarrassment she needed to explain away. That's when I first felt it. That awful, sinking intuition that something was about to happen. A tall woman in a pale pink gown leaned over and whispered something to the bride, to my mother. And both of them looked at me. I caught the smirk, the glance up and down. It wasn't subtle. I wanted to disappear. My mother's hand tightened on her champagne glass. "Lena, I think it's best if you go," she said suddenly. I blinked. "What?" Her voice dropped, barely above a whisper. "You're drawing attention, sweetheart. This isn't the time." I froze. My throat went dry. "You mean because I'm—" She didn't answer. She just looked at me with that soft, pitying smile people give when they don't want to say the truth out loud. I don't know if anyone has ever felt the floor drop out from under them while standing still. But I did. Would you have stayed? Or walked out right then and there? I think about that moment every night, because I didn't leave immediately. I wanted to understand why. I wanted her to at least see me. I reached out, touching her arm gently. "Mom, please." She pulled away. "Lena, don't make a scene." The room had gone quiet. Even the string quartet stopped playing. A few guests exchanged awkward glances, others stared down at their drinks. And me? I just stood there, a grown woman in a dress that suddenly felt 2 sizes too tight, while my own mother treated me like an intruder. That was the first time in my life I saw disgust in her eyes. Not disappointment, not frustration. Disgust? I finally turned around and walked toward the exit. My vision blurred as I passed rows of perfect people who couldn't stop staring. Someone even whispered, "I didn't know she had a daughter." When the doors closed behind me, I couldn't breathe. The cold night air hit me like a slap, and I stood on the marble steps trying to hold myself together. My makeup ran. My hands shook. I wanted to call someone, anyone. But who do you call when it's your own mother who broke your heart? I sat in my car for nearly an hour, watching the lights from the ballroom flicker through the windshield. Every laugh, every cheer from inside, felt like another reminder that I wasn't part of that world anymore. That, I never really had been. And I'll be honest, part of me wanted to drive straight into nowhere, just to make the pain stop. But something inside me refused to let her win that easily. That night, as I wiped my tears and stared at my reflection, I made myself a promise. If she wanted me gone because she was ashamed of me, then she was going to regret it, deeply. What do you think would have hurt more? Her words, or the silence from everyone else who watched and said nothing? I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying it, my mother's eyes skimming over me like I was a spill someone should mop up. I washed off the makeup in the yellow light of my bathroom, and watched the mascara run in gray rivers down the drain. My dress pooled at my feet, like a quiet apology it couldn't say out loud. Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hey, it's Marco, from high school. I bartended your mom's wedding tonight. Are you okay? Marco, lanky, sweet, once the kid who sat behind me in chemistry and wore headphones around his neck like jewelry. I stared at his text for a long time before I typed back. Not really. He called immediately. I saw what happened, Lena. I wanted to step in, but... He exhaled into the phone, voice low like he was hiding in a pantry. The coordinator told staff not to engage if guests were being escorted out. I'm sorry. Escorted out, the phrase scraped me raw. By my own mother. There was a silence heavy enough to knot. Listen, he said, I think there's something you should know. What? It wasn't just her in the moment. They planned for it. The event binder had notes. I shouldn't have seen them, but when you left, they were frantic in the back about keeping the aesthetic consistent. I snapped a picture of the page. I'll send it. I felt the air thicken, like a storm pressing against the house. Send it! A ping. Then another. I opened the photo and stared. It was a page labeled Visual Continuity, Front of House. Bullet points. Phrases that didn't even pretend to be human. Neutral palette, elegant silhouettes, no visible tattoos, no excessively bright hair, no mobility aids on the main floor during photos. Avoid plus-sized optics. Avoid plus-sized optics. And then, handwritten in the margin, a note in a familiar looping script. Make sure Lena understands. Would prefer if she sits this one out. She makes it about herself. Remind security to be discreet if necessary. My throat clicked when I swallowed. Is that my mother's handwriting? I think so. He paused. I'm sorry. I put the phone on the counter and leaned my forehead against the mirror. For a while, I just listened to the small sounds of the night, plumbing settling, the refrigerator cycling on, the world indifferent to a heart coming apart. When I picked the phone back up, Marco was still on the line. Lena, I'm here. If you need anything, seriously, come by the bar sometime. I'll make you the fancy mocktail people order when they're trying to look like they're not crying. That made me laugh, and the laugh cracked me open again. Thank you, I said, and meant it. After we hung up, I sat on the edge of my tub and reread the page until the words blurred. Avoid plus-sized optics. It was clinical, surgical, like I wasn't a person, just a variable in their algorithm for perfection. I wanted to scream. Instead, I opened the group thread with my mother and typed, "Why did you ask them to keep me out?" I watched the 3 dots appear, disappear, appear, and then vanish for good. No answer. In the morning, my aunt, Mom's older sister, who used to sneak me cookies at family barbecues, called. "Honey," she said, "are you home?" "Yeah. I'm coming over." She arrived with grocery bags, eggs, fruit, a loaf of cinnamon bread, the kind that makes the whole kitchen smell like Sunday. She put the bags down, took one look at me, and wrapped me in her arms. I pressed my cheek into her shoulder, and, for the first time since last night, let myself be held. I heard. She shook her head. "I'm so ashamed of her." "She planned it," I said. "It's in the event notes." "I know." She exhaled, sat at my tiny table, and began slicing apples with careful, angry strokes. "And I know why." Something tightened in my chest. "Why?" She slid a plate toward me. "Because the wedding wasn't just a wedding. It was a brand launch." I blinked. What?" "You know that new husband of hers, Trenton? He runs those high-end wellness resorts. Those places where they make you drink chlorophyll and pray to cryotherapy." She took another apple and halved it clean. "They're expanding." He invited investors and influential friends to the wedding. They promised a curated environment of aspirational living. "Aspirational," I repeated, as if the word itself tasted artificial. Aunt Nora's eyes softened. "Your mother has always chased rooms like that. Even when we were kids, She dreamed of being the woman people stare at when she walks in. She found a man who could give her that mirror. And then, she tried to erase anything that didn't reflect back what she wanted to see. Like me. She reached for my hand, not because of you, because of who she is. She squeezed. That doesn't make it hurt less. But it might keep the hurt from owning you. I looked at our linked hands, one set slender, one soft and dimpled along the knuckles. I'd spent most of my life trying to earn a place in my mother's line of sight, lost weight, gained it back, lost it again. Smiled through juice cleanses, let her poke at the softness above my waist, like she was testing bread in an oven. I used to think love sounded like, I just want what's best for you. Lately it sounded like, are you really going to wear that? Can I ask something? Aunt Nora said carefully. Do you want to fight to be in her mirror, or build your own? I didn't answer. Not because I didn't know, but because the answer felt like a door, and I wasn't sure what would rush in when I opened it. Later that afternoon, after Nora left, I pulled a dusty box from the top shelf of my closet. The one. With old photos, school programs, a few letters from my grandfather after he moved to Florida. I spread everything on the carpet, until it looked like a small museum of a life. I found a picture of my mother at 25. Her hair long and dark, her smile bright and easy. In the margin, my grandmother had written, "She thinks she's too big. She's perfect." The date was 8 months before she got pregnant with me. Another photo, me at 7, cheeks glossy with popsicle juice, hair in pigtails, holding a ribbon I'd won for a science fair project that didn't actually work in front of the judges. My mother's handwriting across the back, Lena needs to learn discipline. I kept going. Report cards, doctor notes, the receipt for a diet camp I never asked to attend. I read and read until my heart felt like a muscle that had been running without air. At the bottom of the box was an unopened envelope with my name on it. The postmark was from the summer I turned 19, the year I deferred college to help Mom after her divorce from my dad. I slid a finger under the glue and unfolded a single sheet inside. Dear Lena, it began, in my father's sprawling, careless scrawl. I know you think your mother is strong. She is. But she also has a weakness. She hates anything that reminds her she's not perfect. She will hurt you without meaning to. Because she's fighting something inside herself that has nothing to do with you. When that day comes, don't swallow it to keep the peace. Spit it out and keep walking. Love, Dad. I stared at the page so long it swam. My dad had always loved me loudly and inconsistently. Big gestures, long absences. He wasn't there for me in all the ways I wished he had been. But this was a breadcrumb he'd thrown to a future me. I put the letter back and lay on the carpet. The chandelier in my living room hummed with the ceiling fan and cast little dizzy shadows on the wall. Avoid plus-sized optics, I whispered to the empty room. Make sure Lena understands. By dinner time I knew 2 things. First, I wasn't going to call my mother. Not yet. I wanted silence to work on her, the way it had always worked on me. Second, I was going to find out what else they'd planned. That night, I texted Marco. Can I swing by after your shift? He propped the back door to the restaurant with a bussing tub, and let me slip in. In the kitchen, the dishwasher sang along to a scratchy radio. Marco poured me something fizzy in a coupe glass, and we sat on milk crates in the alley, like we were teenagers hiding from parents we didn't have to obey anymore. He handed me his phone. I have more pictures from the binder, he said. The coordinator left it open on a crate backstage. I swiped. Key stakeholders will appreciate the aspirational atmosphere, one page read. Maintain ageless wellness illusion. Another, if the bride's daughter insists on appearing, have security redirect her to the side terrace. Suggest she take photos there to avoid optical clutter. I felt heat rise up my neck. Optical clutter, I said. That's what a human being is to them. You know what else I heard? Marco said, his voice going lower. The new husband, Trenton, he staged a spontaneous champagne toast for the investors. Called your mom his muse for the brand's next decade. They recorded it on 3 cameras. For a promo. I tried to imagine the take after take. The perfect smile. The perfect lighting. The perfect lie. Marco, I said slowly, are you allowed to tell me who the investor lead is? He hesitated. Then, I shouldn't. But you deserve something honest. He gave me a name. A big name. The kind you hear in podcasts about disruptive wellness tech and venture capital. I repeated it, tasting the consonants like a code. Lena, he said carefully. What are you going to do? I rolled the stem of the glass between my palms. The bubbles broke against the surface like quiet confetti. I don't know yet, but I know it won't be loud. You always liked the long game, he said, smiling a little. Maybe I finally learned it. I looked up at the sliver of night between brick walls. If you were me, would you try to blow it up now, or would you wait until it would cost them the most? He tilted his head, thinking. Time it, he said. Make it count. I went home, with a knot of purpose in my chest. I slept. I dreamed I was walking through a gallery of mirrors. Every reflection was a different me. Thinner, thicker, older, younger, none of them my face. When I woke, the decision felt like a coat I could finally wear without fidgeting. I started with searches. Public records. Articles about the resorts. Investor calls scheduled for the next quarter. I found a press release draft on a media hub. Someone had posted it early by accident and pulled it, but not before it was cached. Carter Wells Union celebrates holistic living. Carter. My mother kept my father's name professionally because it sounded established. Wells was Trenton's. I pictured the hyphen like a stitch sewn through me without anesthesia. I created a new email address and wrote to the investor lead's assistant, politely requesting a tour of the resort for a feature profile. I signed it with the name of a real, small wellness blog I'd once ghostwritten for. 2 hours later, the assistant replied, happy to arrange. Next Thursday at 10 a.m.? I stared at the blinking cursor. I wasn't a journalist anymore, not even a ghost for one. But I could be a researcher, a woman, on a tour. A daughter collecting the receipts for her apology. All week I prepared. I pulled together a portfolio of bland questions about mineral pools and linden blossom detoxes. I practiced neutral smiles. I bought a jacket that made me feel like a lighthouse. On Thursday, a woman with a bun so tight, it looked like it might pull her. Thoughts backward greeted me in a lobby that smelled like eucalyptus money. Welcome to Trenton Wells' flagship, she said. We're delighted to offer you a glimpse into ageless wellness. I wanted to ask her if their ageless wellness included loving the daughter you were ashamed of. Instead, I clicked my pen. We walked past walls of pale stone and glass, every surface reflecting light in a way that made it look like the air itself had been staged. We paused at a window that overlooked the infinity pool. A group of willowy guests in white linen moved as if choreographed, their bodies slow and sure. Here, we teach that the body is the truest mirror, the woman said. We help our members reflect what they value. What do you value more? People or the image of them you can brag about? If you were me, what would you do when those aren't the same thing? I asked about memberships, retreats, cellular rejuvenation packages. I asked about the charity work they touted in their brochure. That last question made her throat flutter. Oh yes, the foundation, she said. It's dear to the family. What foundation? I said, playing dumb. The Carter Wells Fund for Girls' Health, she said. We sponsor programs that teach healthy habits in high schools. I smiled with my teeth. Does your founder's daughter participate? She blinked. I'm not sure. We ended the tour in the Innovation Suite, a room filled with sleek machines and screens displaying pastel biometrics. In the corner, a glass case held products, supplement bottles with minimal labels and aspirational verbs, glow, clarify, sculpt. Those are our proprietary blends, she said, quoting prices that sounded like car payments. We're launching the new Sculpt Plus line at a private event next month. Influencers, investors, it will be significant. Next month. A launch tied to the wedding's buzz. I wrote the date down and underlined it twice. When I got home, Aunt Nora had left a box at my door. Inside was a dress. Deep green, with a simple neckline, and sleeves that felt like kindness when I ran my fingers over them. There was a note on top, "Wear this to whatever you decide. Love, N." I pressed the fabric to my face and cried because love can feel like permission you didn't know you needed. The day before the launch, my phone lit with my mother's name. I let it ring out. She waited 5 minutes and texted, "I'm worried about you." I stared at the words until they meant nothing. Then she called again. I answered. "I don't want to fight," she began, voice soft. "I know you were hurt." "Hurt," I repeated. "Is that what you call it?" She inhaled sharply. "I was managing a situation, Lena. It was complicated." "Complicated how?" "It was our day," she said, more force in her voice now. "Trenton's investors were there. You know how people can be. People like you." I said. "Don't be cruel," she shot back, and the irony made me laugh, ugly and sudden. There was a pause, a recalibration. "We've always struggled with your choices. My body is a choice I made?" I said, blood humming in my ears. "You could try harder. Like I did when you signed me up for diet camp at 12? Or when you hid food at the back of the pantry so I'd learn to ignore temptation? Or when you told my prom date I wasn't going because my dress didn't photograph well?" "That's not fair," she said, shaky. "Neither is planning security to redirect me from your photos." Silence. Then, softly, "You weren't supposed to see that." "But I did." I could hear her breathing. "I want a relationship with you," she said finally. "I'm asking you to be careful." "About what?" "About what you're doing," she said. "Trenton says you've been asking questions." "Trenton says a lot of things," I said. "What are you worried I'll find?" Another silence. Longer. "I'm your mother," she whispered. "I want to protect you." "From who?" I asked. "Me or you?" She hung up. I sat with the dial tone buzzing like a fluorescent light in a bad office. And then I did something small and dangerous. I forwarded Marco's photos to a secure folder and wrote one sentence beneath them. In a document I titled, "The Mirror." "You tried to turn me into optical clutter, and I learned how to make you visible." The launch was held in a loft with white brick and arched windows that made every photo look like forgiveness. I wore Nora's dress and a pair of earrings my grandmother had given me. On my 21st birthday, tiny emeralds that winked when I moved, I walked past a line of influencers practicing their surprised but flattered faces in the reflection of their phones. No one stopped me. I was just another guest in a city that feeds on guests. Inside, a stage glowed with neutral light. The product shelves, glow, clarify, sculpt, stood like soldiers. Staff moved like they were on rails. And in the center, on a small dais, my mother and Trenton posed for photos. His hand at the small of her back. Her mouth tilted in that perfect smile she'd been practicing since before I was born. I felt my heart beat hard against my ribs. Fear, anger, love, grief, all braided into a rope I could finally hold. When the investor lead stepped up to the mic to introduce Trenton, I moved quietly along the back wall to the AV table. I'd spent the past week learning just enough about the rental company they used. Just enough about the brand of clicker in Trenton's hand. Just enough about the software that ran the slides. It turns out the wireless receiver sat right there, next to the laptop, blinking like a lighthouse waiting for a ship. The tech looked up, distracted by a catering manager peppering him with questions about the playlist. I smiled like a person who belonged. Then I paired my own little clicker, the one I'd bought online for $29, with their receiver. It took 4 seconds. I could have cried from how easy it was to become part of the machine that had tried to cut me out. Trenton began his speech about longevity and redefining body narratives in a monotone honed by TED Talks. He clicked to slide 2, chart with arrows that only went up. The investors murmured appreciatively. Slide 3 was supposed to be testimonials. I clicked. The screen flashed. There, 20 feet high, was the page from the event binder, visual continuity, front of house, bullet points, the handwritten note, avoid plus-sized optics. Make sure Lena understands. For a breath, there was no sound. Even the HVAC seemed to hold its wind. Someone near me gasped. A woman covered her mouth with her hand. Phones came out. A murmuration of lenses. Trenton froze. My mother's smile slid off her face like a mask melting in heat. I clicked again. A new slide. A collage of pull quotes from the wellness company's internal memos. That Marco and a sympathetic coordinator had quietly fed me the night before. Maintain ageless wellness illusion. Optical clutter. Redirect the bride's daughter. Beside them, I'd placed a clip from their PR deck. We believe every body tells a story of courage. I didn't add commentary. I didn't need to. The room did it for me. What is this? The investor lead demanded, standing. Trenton fumbled, his face flushing high and splotchy. We have a technical issue. Looks like a philosophical issue, someone else said. And scattered laughter broke across the room like glass. My mother found me in the back. Our eyes locked. Her lips parted. I saw her make a choice. To beg, to rage, to explain. She didn't know which would keep the room. I clicked a final time. The last slide was a photo of me at 7, popsicle gloss and ribbon, with my father's letter transcribed beneath it. Don't swallow it to keep the peace. Spit it out, and keep walking. The room went very quiet. My mother took a step toward me. Lena, she said, voice shaking. Please. I stood still. For once in my life, I didn't move to make her comfortable. Security began to stir, confused, waiting for orders. Trenton whispered harshly to the tech. The investor lead walked out, phone pressed to his ear, already recalculating where his money would look better. Marco appeared at my elbow, breathless. You okay? I nodded. And then I asked the question I'd been saving, the one I want to ask you too. When someone finally stops treating you like a flaw in their photograph, do you forgive them for the years they cropped you out? Or do you build a life where you never fit in their frame again? For a moment, I just stood there, frozen under the soft gold lights. Everyone was still staring at me. Me, the woman they'd all whispered about, the one who didn't fit the frame. And yet somehow, I'd never felt smaller or larger. My mother's heels clicked closer. The crowd parted. The cameras kept flashing. Lena, she whispered, her voice trembling. Why would you do this? I wanted to scream the truth, to unload the decades of shame she'd wrapped around my body like lace too tight to breathe through. But all I said was, because you made me invisible. And I finally realized, invisible people are the most powerful when they decide to show up. She blinked fast, her mascara pooling at the corners of her eyes. You ruined everything. No, I said softly. I reminded everyone that you can't build beauty on someone else's humiliation. Her mouth quivered, but she said nothing. Around us, murmurs rose again. Pity, awe, judgment. Every voice I'd feared all my life, now powerless. Because for the first time, I didn't care. I turned and walked out through the same doors that once closed on me at her wedding. But this time, no one stopped me. No one whispered. No one dared. Outside, the city air was cool, almost kind. The wind caught the hem of my green dress, the one Aunt Nora gave me, and, for the first time in years, I didn't tug it down or hide my arms. I just let it move. Marco followed me out, laughing under his breath. You really did it. I smiled, the kind of smile that comes from your bones. No, I said. I just told the truth out loud. He looked at me for a long second. You think she'll forgive you? Maybe one day, I said. But first, she has to see herself the way she made me see me. We stood there under the flickering streetlight, and I realized something strange. This wasn't revenge. Not really, it was release. I didn't need her apology to feel whole. I just needed to stop apologizing for taking up space in a world that told me not to. And when the news broke the next morning, when the company issued its frantic apology statement, when sponsors pulled back, when their entire brand of ageless wellness crumbled under the weight of its hypocrisy, I didn't gloat, I just smiled, because somewhere inside me, The little girl with the popsicle-stained cheeks finally stopped asking if she was good enough. She already was. 3 weeks later, I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address. I didn't have to check to know it was from her. It read, "Lena, I watched your video. I deserved it. I don't know who I became. I just wanted to be admired. You deserved better than the mirror I gave you. If you ever want to talk, not as mother and daughter, but as two women trying to start over, I'll be waiting." I folded the letter, slipped it into the same box where my dad's was, and smiled. Some wounds don't need to be erased to heal. They just need to be seen. And as I walked down the street that evening, head high, shoulders back, I passed a boutique window that caught my reflection. For the first time in my life, I didn't flinch. I didn't wish for less of me. I looked at the glass and whispered, "This is what beauty looks like when it forgives itself." What about you? If someone you love betrayed you to protect their image, would you forgive them? Or would you make them see the truth first? Because sometimes, the most powerful revenge isn't payback. It's finally loving yourself loud enough that they can't silence you again.